Hey everyone, you're listening to Everything with Easton, and I'm your host, Easton Cook. Now, let's just call this season 2. All right, there has not been an episode since last June, 2022. All right, so why is that? Let's just go ahead and address that right now. Why is that? I could give a whole bunch of reasons, a whole bunch of excuses, but that's what they would be. They would be excuses. I just got lazy. All right, I got real lazy. I could say, oh, life got busy and all these different things. No, I just got lazy and kind of let it slip. But recently, a spark was ignited and I'm back, and it feels good to be back. Now, things have changed since last we spoke, and so I'm just going to give you a quick update on everything going on here and how this pod will run. First things first, for me, all right, I do work at a major airline still. I am an instructor. I'm actually a flight attendant instructor for that airline. And on that subject, if you sign the petition that I linked in my description in one of my podcast episodes just a few episodes back, I just want to say thank you. That petition, that was for boarding pay for flight attendants. And I want to say last year, Delta Airlines became the first major U.S. airline to pay their flight attendants for boarding. Okay, so if you didn't know this is a huge step forward for the industry. If you didn't know this, most airlines don't pay their flight attendants until the boarding door is closed. That means boarding, that means sign in an hour prior to departure. All of that goes unpaid until the boarding door is closed. So this is a major step forward, and I cannot thank you enough for supporting that cause. All right, it's close to my heart, and I could not be more proud of Delta Airlines for that. Now, this should have happened long ago, and I hope other airlines do follow suit. But happy with what we got right now. Now, I no longer live in Colorado. Tori and I, we bought a house in Atlanta, Georgia, so I am a Georgia resident now. Can't lie, living in Atlanta will not be forever, but it's very convenient right now, so I do live in Atlanta. While Tori and I live in this house, we also run it as a crash pad. Now, we bought it as a crash pad as well, and if you don't know what a crash pad is, it's typically available to airline employees, right? So if you're a flight attendant or pilot, a crash pad is very beneficial for you. So let's say that you live in Fort Worth, Texas, right? Dallas, Fort Worth. And you're based in Atlanta, meaning that whatever flight you're about to take starts in Atlanta, right? It'll start and end in Atlanta no matter what. Well, your flight signs in at 6 a.m. Well, there's no flight that's going to get you from Fort Worth, Texas, from Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas to Atlanta at 6 a.m. So that means that you need to go in the night before. And so at that point, you'd have to get a hotel. And a hotel can be very pricey, especially if you're doing that several times a month. So instead, flight attendants or pilots will typically, they'll purchase these crash pad beds. Okay, there's a hot or cold bed. So a hot bed is a bed that you rent for the night, kind of like a hostel, right? So you just come in, you sleep in that bed, you bring your own sheets and everything, and then you get up, you go take your trip, and that's it. You're done with the crash pad. Now, a cold bed is a bed you pay for. So that means that you pay for it for the month, and no one else can stay in that bed. That is yours for the month, okay? And flight attendants and pilots, they want a hot bed or cold bed, whatever kind of meets their needs. And I'll do a YouTube video on that in the coming weeks, but Tori and I do live in this house. We just also run it as a crash pad, and we bought it as a crash pad as well. I also bought a Tesla. I'll do a YouTube video on that as well in the coming weeks. I'm trying to get stronger into YouTube as well. Also, Tori just got a travel nurse position in New Mexico, so she is gone for 3 months. And lastly, I was silent for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, I couldn't speak. 2 days ago was my first day being able to talk. And the reason was, and I can't believe this, I had vocal nodules from teaching at work. All right, so I'm an instructor, like I mentioned, for flight attendants at a major U.S. airline. And I developed vocal nodules. And I could not talk. It was like that scene in Pitch Perfect.
Chloe, your voice didn't sound Aguilarian at all. Chloe, for serious, what is wrong with you? I have nodes.
What? Oh my God. I found out this morning. What are nodes?
Vocal nodules.
The rubbing together of your vocal cords at above average rates without proper lubrication. They sit on your windpipe and they crush your dreams.
Isn't that painful? Why would you keep performing?
Because I love to sing. Yeah.
And I learned a lot through not speaking for 2 whole weeks. Some of them I'll talk about in this podcast possibly today, and others I'll do in another episode. And I'll tell you one thing I realized pretty quickly, not being able to speak for 2 weeks, is that I just missed podcasting. I really do. I missed podcasting, and I've got to be better at discipline. So here I am. And now before I cue that music, all right, that intro music I used like one time in the past episode, before I cue that music, let's just talk about how this show will run just slightly different. All right. Going forward, we'll always come away with 3 points. All right. Good, straightforward messages from the Bible. And speaking of that, I moved this podcast from the category of culture over to spirituality and Christianity. All right. I moved the podcast category. I didn't want to do that to begin with. I really didn't. I didn't want this show to just be another church lesson. I didn't want it to be like okay, he's a preacher, I get it, whatever. Just a lesson and move on. I didn't want that. It's more than that. I want to bring what God is attempting to tell us in the Bible to this modern age. All right? I'm not looking at changing the word of God, just changing how it's delivered to the people of today. All right? Peter did not communicate through TikTok. Jesus wasn't a guest on CNN, and John didn't visit the White House. Paul didn't find people on Instagram. The world has changed. God's word has not. So the message needs to be delivered differently. So why did I put the show in the category of religion when it comes to podcasts? I was attempting at first, when I did culture, I was attempting to reach everyone all at once, all the time. And that wasn't working. That's like throwing dye into the ocean, right? It's visible for a moment, you can see it, and then it slowly fades and just becomes part of the ocean. Instead, I need this podcast to find a home, a niche. All right. So I want it to be like a boat in the ocean, something that's noticeable. It's easy to follow. You know where it is and you understand it, and then let it grow from there. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, which I am filming this for YouTube, so if you're watching it on YouTube, you'll notice I'm wearing a hat. I'm a hat guy now. That's because I'm growing my hair out. I don't know how long I'm going to do this, but I will wear a hat every day that the hair is not communicating or cooperating, I should say. And normally it's not cooperating. All right. I've got that weird thick hair to where it doesn't really grow. It doesn't grow like down. It grows out. So I'm just trying to control it and see if I can kind of, I don't know, maybe one day do a man bun. I guess that's what I'm hoping for. All right. Cue the music. All right, now our first point of the day, you were not meant to live your life alone. All right, I have really been slacking on reading my Bible. I kept fighting with myself on where to start. And I feel like a lot of people have this same issue, and not just with reading the Bible, but like in anything in life, right? They're like, I have this great idea, or I have this dream, this goal, but I don't know where to start, and so I just won't do it. And that's how I felt with the Bible, all right? I was like, I want to read the Bible more, but I don't know where to start. And so finally, I opened the Bible to the first page, and had I done this sooner, I would have realized the answer is right there in the book in the beginning. Just start in the beginning and begin reading there, and then let the Bible take you from there. So I began reading in chapter 1 of Genesis, and there it was in the beginning. As I'm reading the first few chapters, I start realizing that God spoke everything into existence on the first 6 days, right? I'm reading creation. So let there be light. Boom, it happened. He spoke it. Let there be an expanse between the water and the sky. Boom, there it was. He spoke it. And after every single thing that he did, after everything that he created, he then would say, it is good. After he saw it, after everything in 6 days, he would look at it, he would create it, and then he'd say, this is good. This is good. This is good. And it wasn't until he created man and watched Adam live, that he's finally said, this is not good. So God would say it is good after everything he created, but then he watched Adam live his life and said, nah, this is not good. It is not good for man to be alone. So God made someone for him. And just in that same way, you weren't meant to live your life alone either. All right, I think it's one of the biggest issues in today's time. People feel alone. And especially with social media, with all these eyeballs watching your every move, you actually have never felt more alone. And that is not the way God created us to be. You were not meant to live your life on your own. So seek others, seek help. Now, I get it. Yes, Jesus often retreated to be by himself. All right. He would leave his followers. He would leave the big crowds. But after retreating for a little bit, and I encourage that, by the way, if you're around people a lot, if you're around friends a lot, take some time for yourself. It's necessary. It's needed. Okay. But return, because you need others as well. Jesus would always return. He'd always come back to the crowds. He'd always come back to his disciples. And that is great. He never remained alone. You need to be with others. There is such a big spotlight on mental health these days, and I think that's a great thing. But if you look at it in the past few years alone, there's been a substantial increase in therapy visits, right? There have been a substantial increase in people just needing to talk to someone else, and people crave to be listened to and to listen to others. But that doesn't include idle gossip, all right? I'm not including that. Now, when it comes to gossip, I'm going to tell you right now, in the past couple months, I went ahead and tested myself. I was like, hey, let's see if I can go through a whole day without gossiping. And that was my goal. I was just like, an entire day, no gossip. That's what I'm going to try for. And I couldn't do it. Now, I define gossip as speaking negatively about someone or something that happened that I wasn't a part of and I don't actually know is true. And I would find myself doing my job or whatever, living my day-to-day life, and then someone would come up to me and say, hey, did you hear that so-and-so did this? And it wasn't a good thing, right? It wasn't like so-and-so saved a cat from a tree. No, instead it was, hey, did you hear so-and-so? Whatever, something negative. And I would find myself going, no way, and then adding on to it. Well, I heard also, and then I would stop and say, wait, do you know this is this true? Like, do you know this for sure? Well, no, I heard it from, and then I realized, boom, there I was partaking in gossip. I didn't just shut it down. So stay away from gossip, all right? This is not connecting with others. As a matter of fact, this is as superficial as it gets. And I challenge you to go through just one day without gossiping. I challenge you to it's tougher than you expect, I promise. All right? Or maybe you're just a better person than me and you get through it just fine. But I struggled with it. So the point number one, don't live life on your own. All right? You weren't created for that. Surround yourself with people that you trust and you love. Yes, 10,000 followers on Instagram, 1 million followers on TikTok feels good. That's pretty cool. Look at all these people following me. Okay, I've got 5,000 on Instagram. I'm trying to grow it. But I can tell you right now, I only consider a handful of them to be close and true friends. So don't get your worth and your value from followers on social media. Find people in real life, close people, close friends, close family, and surround yourself with them. You are not meant to live alone, so don't do it. Number two, do what's right and do not blame. Look, reading in Genesis, everything was perfect, all right? God created Eve for Adam, so boom, everything was great. And God even said, hey, you can do whatever you want. This world is perfect. Do whatever you want. The only thing you can't do is eat of these two trees. You can't eat the fruit that comes off these two trees. That's the only thing. Anything else, go for it. It is all yours, all right? And what did they do? They did it, all right? Obedience is one of my biggest downfalls, all right? Listening to instruction, I hate listening to instruction. I do. All right. I don't like being told what to do. It's something I'm working on. But listening and following instructions is a virtue. It's something that we need to learn to do. Now, Adam and Eve were told not to eat of a certain fruit, and they did it. And then God comes walking through the garden. Okay. But Adam and Eve are hiding. So God calls out and says, hey, Adam, Eve, where are you? And Adam and Eve are like, hey, we're hiding because we're naked and we're afraid. God's like, what? Who told you were naked? I told you everything is permissible. Enjoy this life, but just don't eat of the fruit. So what in the world did you do? So they come out of hiding, and immediately the blame game begins. Adam starts out. He says, look, God, that woman that you gave me, all right, blaming God right there and the woman. So it couldn't be Adam. He said, that woman that you gave me, she told me to eat the fruit. God looks at Eve. Eve says, the snake told me to do it. So God, okay. He says, I gotta punish, right? He's like, I gotta punish. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But it went blame to blame to blame. It just trickled down. I mean, it really did. It trickled down. The moment something goes wrong, you look for a way out, right? HR or your manager, they email you and say, hey, can I see you on Monday? And immediately you begin going through every wrong thing you've ever done in the 8 years you've worked for that company, in the 10 years you've worked for that company, in the 1 year you've worked for that company. You begin going through every single thing that you did wrong or that you could have done wrong and begin thinking of reasons you did it and people that made you do it, right? Because it couldn't be you. No, it's not your fault. It could not be your fault. There's so many other people that are at fault. That's called blame. It's a sin that goes back to the beginning, and we've got to stop doing that. If you find yourself deflecting any wrongdoing and you're like, hey, every time something happens, it's not my fault, you're probably in the wrong. It's probably your fault. A true showing of strength and heart is when you accept a mistake that you made. All right? Even if that mistake was because of someone else, accept your piece of the pie. Okay? You come out and you say, look, I did do this. You own up to it. Okay? Don't begin blaming them, but also they did this. No, here's what I did. Here's why I'm wrong. And move on. All right? You accept what consequences will probably come. All right? I'm not saying in this podcast, oh, if you do that, no consequences. How great is that? No, consequences will probably still come. And truth be told, they're probably needed. If your kid hit another kid and you just said, help, don't do that, your kid learned nothing. There's discipline that needs to be involved. There's a punishment that needs to be involved so they learn the lesson. You cannot do this. You cannot do what you just did. In the same way, God punished each one. All right, Adam was cursed to work the grounds, and the ground would resist him. It would fight back with thorns and resistance. Eve's childbearing pain was increased immensely, and then the snake was required to slither on its belly and eat dirt for the rest of its life because it didn't have legs, so it would just its face would have to be toward the ground. All right, but even after there were these consequences, and they were banished from the garden, all of that happened. Even after all of that, God could have said, you know what? Screw it. I'm done. I can't believe it. I literally gave you one rule and you still did it. I'm done. You're dead. I'm destroying this world. New project later. No, instead, God, he banished them. He gave them the punishment. There were consequences. But then he took the time to knit together, to create clothing for them, because now they understood they were naked. And so now there was sin in the world. And so he went ahead and took the time to create clothes for them, and then sent them on their way and watched them and blessed them as they continued their lives. He didn't just ditch them. And in the same way, God's not just going to ditch you. He doesn't look at you and go, dang, you really screwed up. I'm done with you. It doesn't work like that. Accept the blame, accept your mistakes, accept the consequences, and move on. God still has you. He didn't just ditch you and kick you to the curb. And I know it sucks. I get it. But to build, you often have to tear down. I know, that sucks. But it's true. To build, you often have to tear down. God wove this lesson into our very beings. So did you know, when you work out, for example, you're actually tearing down your muscle in order to build stronger, bigger muscle on top of it. All right, and that's why you're sore. I know it sucks to be sore. It sucks to work out, but the results are good. You may fail, you may fall. Own up to your mistakes, accept the consequences, and know that God is still watching out for you. Do what's right, don't blame others. Now, number 3. Rest when you've really done the work. All right, this is the shortest point right here because this is it's very direct. Okay, on the 7th day, God rested. Let's learn from it and do the same. Okay, work your ass off for the majority of the week and then rest. And I mean truly rest when you've done true work. All right, a lot of us say you're busy. A lot of us say we're busy, but just because you're doing more doesn't mean you're getting more done. All right, work can come in many opportunities. And a lot of us probably think, oh, the cubicle work, right? You go to work 9 to 5, come home and you're done. Work can be even more than that. Raising children, keeping the house, building your business. It comes in so many different shapes and sizes. The point is really work, really put in the hours. Truly build and create with your life. That pile of clothes that has been on that chair that's aptly become the clothes chair, when you finally fold those clothes, don't take your 2-hour break catching up on Emily in Paris just because you finally did a job that you've been putting off. That's not true work, all right? That's just something you should have done a long time ago. And hey, I'm guilty of it too. So do real work, truly get out there. You should spend more time working. Don't let your rest overshadow your work. All right? It's very important to rest. If God did it, we should do it. But we do live in a world where it's this I deserve this mentality. And we end up deserving Chick-fil-A every single day. What is up with that? I'm telling you right now, I don't deserve Chick-fil-A every single day. I freaking love Chick-fil-A. I do not deserve it every single day. All right, so do not get into that mentality. God created the universe in 6 days and then he rested. Let's do the same. Let's work, and then rest. And then take the much needed rest day. And that's it for the show today. Remember, number 1, you were not meant to live life on your own. Number 2, do the right thing. Listen to instruction. Don't blame others when you mess up. Number 3, learn to really work, truly work, and then truly rest. Y'all, that's it for today. I'll talk to you on Wednesday. I'll tell you right now, I just became a associate with Amazon, and I will only put up links to things that I truly believe in. All right, I'll take a picture of my set here so you can see it. Boom, right there on YouTube. There's a picture of I know it's small, but we're growing, and that's totally fine. This is what I've got to work with, and this is what I'll use. So anything you're wanting to start a YouTube channel, you're wanting to start a podcast, these are great items. I will put links in my description below. Also, if you like the hat, I got the hat on Amazon. It is an American flag right there on this gray hat. So if you're watching on YouTube and you're like, hey, I want some of these items, y'all use my link. It costs nothing for you. I get a little bit of money in return, and that is it. All right, it is at no extra cost to you. I will talk to y'all next Wednesday. I think this is a great start. God bless.